Okay, so let me got the music playing. Okay, so we're doing Andrade, Doodling. Very simple. I mean, the section not very simple, to be honest. Yeah, this one's actually kind of complicated. So, Andrade in brief. Let's start. Um, Andrade. Not at all. She just did it by herself. Andrade doodling. So, in brief, 40 participants listened to a very boring pretend telephone message. Half were asked to shade printed shapes at the same time, the doodling group. All participants were asked to listen out for specific information in the message and write it down. The doodlers recorded the names more accurately and remembered 29% more information on the surprise memory test, which included both monitored and incidental information. Andrade concluded that doodling can enhance performance on a concurrent task through decreasing boredom, which can be an uncontrolled variable in some cognitive experiments. Were studied therefore has important implications for both the research community and people in everyday situations, including schooling and or schools and workplaces. All right. Cool. So, also, wait a second. Dr. Victor from Arcade? Sorry. Okay. So, Andrade doodling just as long as the other one that we just did. So I'll probably be finished at around 2:25 is probably when I'll finish. But I'll slowly get better at doing these quicker and more accurately. So we'll see. So names. One. Investigate. Well, let's just read it first. To investigate whether doodling improves our ability to pay attention to auditory information. Investigate if doodling improves attention to audio. Then, number two, to investigate whether doodling affects later recall of auditory information. Does doodling affect later recall? Info. Methodology. Lab experiments. Independent measures design. Independent measures design. As the researchers compared the performance of two separate groups, experimental group and control group, random allocation, order of recall, counter, balanced, cross. That's not how you spell it. Cross participants. Independent variable was whether the participants were allowed to doodle. IV allowed to doodle or not. DV. The president doodling the rest shade alternating around the 10 circles and 10 squares. Creating in shapes. DV. DV1 was monitoring accuracy. DV2 was memory for monitored info. And DV3 memory for incidental info. So, what do these mean? Monitoring accuracy. The number of correct names recorded while listening to the tape. Number of correct names recorded. Deducted points for falling for false alarms. What did memory for monitored info mean? Answers from the total number of correct names to the final monitor. Okay, memory number of correct names recalled after false alarms were deducted. Monitoring accuracy. Number of connect names recorded. Recalled. Okay. Number of correct names recalled minus put equals here because it looks better. Equals number of correct names recalled minus alarms. And the final one, number of correct places recalled. Correct places recalled. Sample 40 P's. (18 to 55-year-olds). Recruit without definition of experiment. All just finished a experiment. Asked if they'd mind staying for one more. Done to increase general population appeared to part in psych research for a small payment. Okay, procedure. So the procedure, audio tape, 2.5 min, fake telephone message, flat tone of voice, 2 to 7 words per minute. Eight names mentioned. About info about a party. Who could party? Three names and a cat who couldn't party. And 8 places. Bunch of other yes info. Listening to the recording. Please listen on their own in a quiet room. Pretend speaker was a friend, inviting them to a party. Tape is boring and they don't have to remember anything. Write down names of those coming to party. Don't write anything else. Okay. Given A4 paper to count down names, speed groups, paper at a margin for notes. And shapes to shade in. Control group's paper was just lined. Same volume played for every P. Surprise mem test. Next, the researchers collected response sheets and chatted to the participants for 1 minute. During this time, they revealed the deception. There would now be a surprise memory test. Half of the group were asked to recall the names first and then the places. Half of each group asked to recall names, then places. Counterbalanced order. Asked if they'd guessed that there'd be a surprise man test. Okay, analysis. What am I writing? Analysis. Researchers included any names or places they thought had been. Okay. Misheard names or places counted as correct. Incorrect names and false alarms deducted. Correct names and non-party goers. False alarms. Words, not names or places. Correct. Results. Amount of doodling. Average of 36.8 shapes shaded. One person. Egg placed since they didn't doodle at all. No one in control. Monitoring accuracy. Doodlers in 7.8. Control mean 7.1. We'll just do this. 7.7.9. Recall. Doodlers. Mean total 5. Total mean total 5.8. Out of 8. Out of 8. Out of 16. Out of 16. Okay. Total recall score was out of 16. 29% higher in Doodling group compared with control group. Doodling group. Doodlers remember both types of information better than control group remembered monitors information better than incidental. The average number of false alarms is low and also identical across doing. There are the number of people who indicate that they thought there might be a surprise when we test. 3 in the Doodling group before again without their data. Doodling group so. With those who did expect a binary test, ignored the results, stayed same. Conk. Concluded that doodling can improve concentration when listening, even when the task is rather boring. Even when the task is boring. Also concluded that it can help us to remember information better even when we are not expecting to have to do so. When not expecting to need to remember. Oh god, now we're on to evaluation. Just kill myself, man. This is the worst part every time. Actually, maybe not. I don't know. Ethics. Weak. Deception. That they didn't need to remember anything. Not true. Although this was important, stopped. What the fuck? Stopped. Wait. Okay. Math. Strength. Highly standardized procedure. Study can be replicated easily. Same audio message, same environment. Same intervals between tasks. Validity. Strength. Valid. The order in which the persons recall the monitor's information and instead of information counterbalance. Counterbalanced order of recall. Counterbalanced order of recall. Minimized impact of order effects. Ifs in memory attributed to doodling, not order. Weak, invalid. Operational depth of doodling. Dating 1 centimeter shapes is unusual. Usually doodling is more creative. Important. Since increased concentration doodling may not be the case for those who do not shade shapes. Okay, we're getting closer. We're on our way. Validity is the longest one always, so. Confounding variables. Strength. Confounding variables. Controlled. Check to see if these expected exception and test. Allowed for reanalysis of data after excluding those who predicted it. Improves overall validity of findings. Proves the overall validity of findings. Simple. Okay. Last one. Jesus Christ. Use of blurs. Is this a strength? Strength. Valid. Use of blurs. Strength of Andrade's telephone message. Use of blurs, meaning the names of people who are not attending the party. Participants who were not really listening to the content of the message, just listening out for names, might have been lured into writing. Participants who were not paying attention would be lured to call these names. Reduces overall score. Proves validity of I'm gonna take a quick drink of water. Proves validity of findings. Findings. Ensures concentration was measured accurately. Generalizations. Weakness. Gen beyond sample. Non-even gender split. Mostly females. .5%. It's crazy. Gynocentric. Like gyno. Wait, I don't know what I'm saying. Like what are they called? The vaginal doctors. What are they called? Gyno. Am I stupid? I'm stupid, I think. Okay. Whatever. This is important as it means to generalize findings for males must be treated with caution. Okay. Gen to males is hard. Another weakness. Goddamn. Weak. Gen to everyday life. Lab setting. Highly controlled. Doesn't affect real world setting. Extra sounds. Other walking. Distracting visuals. Also, Okay. Okay, we're almost done. Come on, baby. Choose end. Base. Individual versus situational. Strength. Shows how attention and memory not just affected by individual ifs, by situational factors. Students. Um, information. Boom, done. Okay. Start from the top. Andrade, doodling. The aims. 1. To investigate if doodling improves attention to audio. Number 2. Does doodling affect later recall of info? The methodology, lab experiment, lab setting, independent measures design, different people for the different two groups, our control and doodling group, experimental group, control group, right? Random allocation of people to these groups, and the order of recall at the end of the procedure was counterbalanced across the participants. We'll talk about that later. The independent variable was whether or not you're allowed to doodle, which was shading and shapes. Dependent variable 1 was the monitoring accuracy, which is the number of connect names recorded during while listening minus the number of false alarms recorded. Dependent variable 2 was the memory for monitored info, which was the number of correct names recalled in the surprise test minus the number of false alarms recalled. And dependent variable 3 was the memory for incidental info, which was the number of correct places recalled after the during the surprise test. The sample was 40 participants, opportunity sample, 18 to 55 years old, and had all just finished a different experiment and were asked if they'd mind staying for one more. This was done to increase boredom. And they were all from a general population who volunteered to take part in psych research for a small payment, which is why they were all doing the other study. Procedure. Audio tape. The audio tape part of this was a 2.5-minute fake telephone message, flat tone of voice, 227 words per minute, and it was information about a party. 8 names were mentioned about people who could party, or could attend the party, 3 names, and a cat who couldn't attend the party, 8 random places, and a bunch of other bullshit info that didn't matter. Listening to the recording, the participants listened on their own in a quiet room. They were told to / that pretend speaker was a or that they were told to pretend that the speaker was a friend inviting them to a party, told that the tape is going to be boring and that they don't have to remember much of anything. They were also told to write down names of those coming to the party and told to not write down anything else. They were given A4 paper to note down their names. The experimental group's paper had a margin for notes and shapes to shade in. like 1 centimeter squares and circles or something. The control group's paper was just lined. The same volume was played for every participant, and then at the end there's a surprise memory test. Half of each group asked to recall names, then places, then counterbalance order for the other half. So, recall places and names. Then they were asked if they'd guessed that there'd be a surprise memory test at the end. Analysis: the misheard names were or places were counted as correct. Like, for example, if they heard Greg instead of Craig, then it would be counted as correct. But if they were incorrect names or non-party goers, then they're counted as false alarms, deducted points. Words that weren't names or places were also marked as incorrect, of course. The results: the amount of doodling, average of 36.3 shapes shaded with very high standard deviations, so it's whatever, it doesn't really matter. One person replaced since they didn't doodle at all in the doodling group, and also no one in the control group ended up doodling as they were told. Monitoring accuracy: the doodlers mean monitoring accuracy, as in when they were listening to the thing, they got 7.7 out of 8 names recorded correct. Control mean was 6.9 out of 8 names correct. The recall performance. For the recall performance in the surprise test, the doodlers mean total was 7.5 out of 16, and the control mean total was 5.8 out of 16, making the doodlers 29% higher in the doodling group. Even with those who did expect a memory test with their data being left out as an ignored, the results stayed the same. Conclusion: doodling can improve concentration when listening, even when a task is boring, and even when not expecting to remember anything, or not expecting to need to remember anything. For the evaluation, ethics is kind of weak because of the deception. They were told they didn't need to remember anything. Of course, this was not true. Although this is important for making the study even work, it prevented the participants from giving fully informed consent. Methodology: we have a strength, which is that it was reliable and the procedure was highly standardized. The study can be replicated easily. They used the same audio message, same environment, same intervals between tasks, etc., same papers, whatever. Validity-wise, we have a strength, increasing validity, which was the counterbalance order of recalls. Minimize the impact of order effects. The differences in memory can be attributed to doodling and not the order of recalling places versus names or names versus places. Weakness, which invalidates the study slightly, is the operational definition of doodling that was given. For Andrade made it shading 1 centimeter shapes. Of course, it's kind of unusual because usually doodling is a more creative process, more spontaneous. And this is important since increased concentration, make this bigger, during doodling may not be the case. Increased concentration during doodling may not be the case for those who do not shade shapes and instead, draw something more creative. A strength for validity would be the confounding variables that were controlled. They checked to see if the participants expected the deception and test, and if they did, then they reanalyzed the data after excluding those who predicted it, and that improves the overall validity of the findings. Another strength, which increases validity, is the use of lures. Participants who are not paying attention fully would be lured to recall these false alarm names, and that reduced their overall score. This improves the validity of the findings because it ensures that concentration was being measured accurately. Generalizations: 2 weaknesses here. It's hard to generalize beyond the sample because it was a very non-even gender split. It was mostly females, 87.5%, which makes generalizing to males very hard. Another weakness is generalizing to everyday life. Since they were doodling in a lab, they were listening and doodling in a lab setting, which was highly controlled with no other sounds, no other people. It doesn't really reflect a real world setting where you'd be hearing extra sounds, hearing other people talking, and seeing distracting visuals, stuff like that. Also, they knew that it was a psychological test or psychological study, and they also knew that it wasn't a real phone call. It wasn't a real friend that they were listening to, which makes it a lot harder to generalize to everyday life setting. Generalize the results, of course, to a everyday life setting. Then finally, issues and debates. individual versus situational. This is a strength, which shows how attention and memory is not just affected by individual differences. It's not just that this guy has better memory than this guy. It's also affected by situational factors like whether or not you're allowed to doodle, etc. Application to everyday life is also a strength. We can use this to support students, as it suggests that teachers should allow doodling in their classes to improve student concentration, blah, blah, blah. The end. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.